Hello, everybody. I'm Jackson,
I'm Justin.
and today we're trying to meet in the middle if we can. On the show today, we're going to be talking about the Charlie Kirk murder. I want to talk about some of the backlash that's been happening in the media. Justin, you had some points to talk about?
Yeah, again, mine would be why it happened and how we got here and what our, kind of speculation assumptions might be.
All right.
And then, at a greater perspective, what that effect has on gun rights, what it has on jury selection, and, kind of a lot of stuff going forward as to how this whole thing even turns into a resolution at some point.
Jury selection for a trial like this would be an absolute nightmare. I mean, there's the fact that you sent me that video minutes after it happened, and within minutes after that, it was everywhere. I mean, even another topic that I'm sure we can't really get into today, but just the fact that these social media platforms
They don't have the
couldn't
time.
they couldn't
Yeah, there's no time.
gatekeep it, or they couldn't
As
censor
fast
it.
as that bullet went out, those videos went out,
Yeah,
and there's no stopping that stuff. Yeah.
which was wild.
Yep.
Talking about the shooter, what were some of the specific things that were brought questions to you?
Um, the stuff for me was, again, I think everybody wants the why, right? And
Sure.
unfortunately, if he decides not to talk, then it leaves us with a lot of open-ended questions as to why, because that right of remaining silent, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to incriminate himself, and he doesn't have to give us more detail. He can take it to the grave, which might happen pretty quickly. But
Well, I mean, just to your point of that, I mean, the fact that I read they put him on suicide watch
yeah,
recently.
well, and
That
that was all
sounds like a lot. Another in jail
household.
suicide
Yeah,
watch. Come
yeah,
on.
and you know what? They interviewed the officer they called, and he said that, and again, he was worried about SWAT breaking into his house. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but you shot somebody. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I mean, we know you have a gun, we know you're gonna, you have the ability to use it, and you're not in your right frame of mind, obviously not. And it's like, yeah, if someone came in there, and it was interesting to hear that they went over and above to really softly bring the guy in, because it's like, would you rather have him alive to see if we can figure something out, or do you want us to bum rush him and then we never know? Like, we guarantee we never know.
Yeah.
So the over accommodation they did to bring him in, to get him in there, and then again thinking that he was probably done for anyway, that suicide was probably not an unlikely thing. I probably would have done the exact same thing, but it's just interesting in the ways of, you hear from both sides, right? The left is going to say Utah Mormon, conservative family, which they're 100% right. I mean, it's exactly who he was, exactly where he came from. Um, but you know what? It's the 4 years really after that, right? After high school, where it's like 18 to 22 to where we are now, and it's just a matter of all he did was college, and his most recent thing was a trade school near his house. It was like an electrician program of some kind. And he was a smart kid, scholarship too, and everything else. And you wonder, okay, well, if he had at home structure of family and religion and whatever else, and then the only thing that happened between now and then was college, you have to wonder about what happened to him in those 4 years that changed so much, and why,
Well,
really.
this has been a talking point on the right for a long time. I mean, I've seen plenty of
They're
those.
blaming schools.
Yeah, I mean that there's been plenty of those gotcha, super liberal gotcha kind of YouTube shows that they go to Trump rallies and dupe these mega MAGA people into saying real stupid stuff. But an overarching topic that they've gotten people to talk about in line for those Trump rallies was, you know, there's so many liberals that come out of college. You got to think about what are they teaching in college, and like it's just like a liberal factory, and that to me, I mean, to me is clearly the line of making college more expensive, making student loans harder to get and harder to pay back. They're stripping back our ability, or not us so much. We're college graduates, but like I want to go to grad school. I want to go to law school. I want to like get a post degree. And there's so much that's stopping me, because I'm thinking, okay, right now, most of my friends that have gone to graduate school have been pulled off of their income based repayment plans, and they went from a couple $100 a month maybe to $2,000 a month, and it's becoming school is becoming so prohibitively expensive, and loans are just not an option anymore. It's really going to be, you either can pay for it out of pocket or you don't go to school. And I think there's a lot of people that would say, well, good, that's great. We need more people in the trades. The trades have been lacking,
I mean, we
and
do. That's 100%. Yeah.
yeah,
And again,
but
if you get in the immigration thing, not only do we need more people, but now we definitely need more people because
yeah,
there's
as
nobody around.
as power and money is pulling into fewer and fewer hands, what scares me is that the people that are benefiting and profiting off of the backs of labor, a lot of which is immigrant labor, a lot of times, you know, like the is far more right leaning. And to me, in my view, we're seeing a lot of like business owners, and you know, like just even talking about the media companies that own all of the networks in this country. They have so much control. Those three big, huge companies have so much control over what we hear and how we hear it and who we hear it from, that I'm worried that that's going to be higher education as well. That we're going to start getting policed on what can be taught and how it can be taught, and then and making it so expensive that and hard to get loans that people can't get college educations. The people in power, the lawyers, the people that are getting MBAs are only going to be from that conservative side, and that worries me. I mean, we're going to lose a lot of voices and potential, you know, world changers that couldn't afford to go to school. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's going to be that thing where you have alternating, again, more delineating, alternating perspectives where it's like, it seems like the Republicans are strongholding themselves to being the money managers and control of this stuff because they don't have control in the schools where everybody that's there, again, I went to three different junior colleges and then, our university and stuff like that. And I would still say that the generalization is correct, where there are a lot more left leaning professors and everything else in there. The Democrats went all in on school a long time ago, where it was like, go to school, get your degree and everything else. Whereas the Republicans, being more rural, being more middle of the country, doing a lot more of the farming, do a lot more of the trades work and stuff like that, didn't prioritize it as much. But it ends up being that if you have land and you have crops and you have all these things where you have money, but you don't have the school. And if they can't get into the schools or they don't prioritize, getting into the schools, well, they need to have their say or their side or their part. And so that's the part they're grasping for, is that if we can't do this, well, then we got to try and get it another way. And it's it's unfortunate and stuff, but again, you can't have it all one way where it's like all the teachers can't be that way. And then you have the whole other half that's completely unrepresented. So and again, and I don't know what the middle is right now. It seems like a check and balance of all the teachers are still there. All the professors are still there. It's just a matter of getting to them now. And it's,
For
you know,
us, you know, our experience at a state, you know, California State University, we were at a college that was historically a um you know, a college that was built to create access for underserved communities. You know, I
well,
think that
commuter school. It was a commuter
is a
school for
commuter
sure,
school.
where it's like convenience in there.
Yeah.
And
I think that there's still, because it used the word like underrepresented, like the conservative side of it was underrepresented at our school. Yeah, obviously it was extremely
well,
underrepresented.
in Southern
Just
California too. I mean, and
right.
in the cities, I mean, it's going to be big time one way.
Yeah.
Go out to Riverside or Bakersfield might be a little bit different, but you know,
Well, even going out farther than that, I think that there are a lot of very, very popular Southern schools that still have a predominantly conservative student base. And I think that that's only going to grow. That's only going to be more and more of the norm in those areas. And we're going to have big parts of the country that are only liberal type colleges and only conservative type colleges. And I'm worried that this political divide is going to bleed into our higher education in a really big and scary way. And
probably. Or the Republicans, anybody right leaning is just going to lean on the homeschooling and then private stuff.
Mhm.
I know Jordan Peterson has his whole new online university thing now where they're gonna skip it altogether.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, again, getting back to, certain stuff, like the only thing that he did was go to a trade school and go to a university, right? I heard some weird thing, and I don't have a ton of knowledge on Mormons and stuff like that. I don't know where you are with it, but someone made the weird, and I can't remember where I heard it, but it was like a weird take on Mormons having kind of like a connection or something to the Philippines and the way stuff is there. And then you find out that his partner was trans, and it's like, did he go on a mission or something over there and came back and it changed his because all of a sudden he was, it just seems really short in time, and I saw another video of supposedly a guy that went through his yearbook and found his picture and was kind of giving his take on, like, I remember seeing him around campus. He goes, but I didn't really know him. And he's like, anyone of our age, he's like, we would describe him as a Reddit kid. So most people would say that he was, again, we can put in our heads kind of the Twitch person or the Reddit person or somebody like that, where it's a little bit antisocial or maybe not in the social aspects of things, where they can get on the internet or on the forums where we're and then, once you open that door, kind of any weird influence could come from wherever it does, right? And, I think you and I are at a very interesting part of history where we came up with technology. I remember my first phone only having buttons. I remember having flip phones. I had the first PlayStation all the way to whatever else. And now we've grown to this stuff. Like for me, I have no addictive tendencies to me, really. So this whole social media thing, whatever, there's so many times where I wish my phone was just never on because I don't want to hear it. And but it doesn't bother me. I don't have like anxiety about not having it. And some people freak out if they don't have their phone or they don't, like, get certain things. I remember going outside and playing, you know, drinking from the hose and crap like that. We did all that crap. But we're just young enough to still be marginally exposed to this stuff, to where we can see that older generation that I remember, again, growing up, and my dad had no idea about computers, man. He had no idea what was going. I could have been doing anything on my computer and he would have had no idea what I was doing. So it was very hands off sometimes too. And if you have more of a, again, depending on the types of parents in the household, he could have been doing anything on that damn thing or a computer in his room and had no idea what was going on. So I mean, we look at the guy and stuff that he did, and then you wonder about, you know, um what he was exposed to that nobody even knew about, and that's to say that it was all on him, right? I think we both kind of come down to this scenario of, we don't think this dude just got in his car and went over there and did it all on his own just because of that. I think, again, we're hoping that in custody and with the trial that maybe we find out some more things.
I'm so skeptical that he's even going to make it to trial. The to me, like I have so many. I mean, this whole thing has caused my algorithm on
Oh, it's totally screwed
the
up.
platform to
Totally.
get really dark and
Oh yeah.
really conspiracy theory. And I've been talking to friends and coworkers. I talked to my therapist about this, that I'm taking everything that I'm seeing with a grain of salt. I haven't done enough research in either direction to really have a concrete opinion or believe one thing over another. But so many of the signs that I'm seeing are pointing to him, to this shooter being a pawn. That just like he was. I mean, like people saying, "Oh, he got radicalized," or like something caused him to do this. I mean, to me, it's just too suspicious. There are just so many red flags to me that says that this person was chosen
Absolutely
to
not
do
alone,
this.
is what I would say.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely not alone. Yeah.
and
My whole thing is a gun, man. The whole thing where he takes the shot, disassembles the gun, runs off into the forest, reassembles
yeah,
the
it makes
gun,
no
and
sense.
leaves the gun behind. I mean,
Makes no
I'm
sense.
sorry, but like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, why wouldn't you take it with you? You took the time to, like, no, I think of that. And I'm just like,
The taking it with him is like that is the least of it. I mean, like
why would you leave it behind?
nothing about disassembling, reassembling makes sense. Leaving
No,
it is
why would you?
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's just the surface of stuff, I mean, the supposed, texting or twitching or whatever it was after the fact, right? Um, Everybody thinks that that thing is so scripted, and,
Oh, it's
you know,
AI
but
generated. Yeah.
yeah, it's real bad, but you know what? The one thing I wanna leave room for, right, is, I don't know regularly how he conversed, right? We have no previous thing as to how he texted.
This is
I'm just gonna the only thing I'm gonna say, right,
yeah,
is the gaming aspect and those kinda kids, yeah, antisocial wise, whatever else, maybe even a little autism is a lot more widely known now. They do talk a little differently than just
sure.
normal conversation. So, I mean, the one thing I will say is that I read it, and the first thing I thought was like, I don't think so. Like that doesn't sound right. It doesn't look right. Whatever else. And the second thing thought of was maybe he's an awkward dude, and that if you say that someone's awkward, right, and we're already knowing he's totally cool with just killing a stranger. So, I mean, I'm not going to put frame of mind, and whatever else, but it's like it was enough for me to be like, I don't want to completely rule it out because what if he's just a little weird, Like what if
But that I
I
mean that the fact that people like that his social media was just non-existent and
that
wiped,
that was
you know.
because I instantly looked him up and I was
Yeah.
like, he's got to be somewhere. And I was like, no, man, he's not anywhere.
I
Like,
mean, I'm sure that there's protocol, to investigations like this and
or freeze the account and
freeze the
like take
accounts
it
and
down
things like
or
that. But
whatever. Yeah.
it was just suspicious. The There's just been so many. I talked to a coworker about this week that you can take
Off the clock, right?
you can take a connect the dots type of picture and you can connect 1 to 7 and 7 to 20 and like you can create a very interesting picture like out of something that it's not. And with the rumor mill and the speculation mill and the conspiracy mill like at full tilt, um, there's just been so many weird inconsistencies in this entire thing, and there's too many cooks in the kitchen at this point. Everybody has an opinion.
Oh yeah.
Everybody is feeling like, oh,
Did you
they got the gotcha.
Did you see that supposedly they interviewed a neighbor, and she was saying that there was a bunch of vehicles with like out of state licenses and
That's what I'm
stuff
saying.
in the past months, couple years, whatever else. I mean, it's and then how do you discount what his family supposedly said, where over the years he had gotten more and more political and like more and more against this. I mean, they turned him in. Why would they lie all of a sudden about like, hey, Thanksgiving he was a little? It's like, well, again, so I think he already had to be somewhat leaning in that direction, and then it's just a matter of who lit the spark and who stoked the flame, basically.
Yeah, yeah. That still assumes that this was motivated by him. I still don't, in my heart of hearts, don't feel like this was this was his idea or that he wanted to do it. I just
Yeah.
don't like that. It just feels like he was chosen and either blackmailed or coerced into carrying this out. And the fact that his family turned him in like that kind of makes sense that they're, a Mormon Utah conservative family that's like, we play by the rules and we call the police when we see something, we say something,
Yeah.
and that doesn't jive with this picture of this shooter, like that. Everything just feels too convenient, but also just too complicated, and for it
Well,
to make any
yeah.
sense.
Well, and then I know that you had something as far as like the backlash to it, right? And
Yeah,
the first gut thing that people want to react or figure out is like, oh, was he left or was he right? And I'm like, I looked it up as much as I could, and he's a registered voter, but it's no party. And a lot of people will make the assumption, well, Utah, okay, well, Utah is Utah, so we know it's all red, but and then conservative family, so it could have been right, but then it's like, um, he didn't vote in the last election, so it's again, we want to make assumptions, but we don't we don't know,
I
you
think
know.
there's a to me there's a big problem with the fact that what does it matter? Like, does it really matter
No, yeah, exactly.
what his political leaning was? I mean,
Only in the stance of if it was politically motivated based on how they would try and like the how they would deem it court-wise as the
Would
motivation, I
that
guess.
would that change the sentencing if
I
it
don't
came
know.
out that he was a
It would
Democrat
be
or
like
that he was a
political
liberal? Like,
violence, terrorism. I don't know how it would, they're already seeking capital punishment. So, I mean, it's already as high as it could be, but I don't know.
he's never going to make
It's
the
people
trial.
searching for the why, right? I guess. And it just,
Yeah, I mean it's just such a problem that the immediate reaction to this was just assuming that, oh, it had to have been a liberal. The
well,
Democrats
that's the,
are to
yeah.
blame for this, and it's like blah blah blah. Like, whoa, like, that's not.
That's their first gotcha, is all it is. It's their
I
first point
guess. I
of
mean,
contention. That's, I mean, as far as them, right? Well, we didn't do it. Oh, well, you had to have done it. And like, it's a finger point, is all
yeah,
it
it's
is.
just weird.
And it's a political talking point.
Yeah,
So no, I mean, I think as far as he goes in like that situation, um, I looked into the schools and whatever else. He did go to that university for like a month or something, so he wasn't like unfamiliar with it, I guess. I think some of that stuff. Again, we have to ask. My whole question is why, and that's
yeah,
just to make sure. That's just to make sure that uh, we might have a you might have a mark on the skin, but is the problem deeper than what it is? I
right.
think that the solution, of course, is trying him for the action that he did, sure. But if we don't find out the motivating factors and whatever else, we're missing the problem. That's my big thing. How
Yeah,
we do, I don't know.
the that initial reaction of that blame game kind of, to me, flies in the face of like innocent until proven guilty. Like we're built on in this, or supposedly built on in this country, that like, hey, we don't have all the facts yet, we can't assume anything. I hate that we live in this world where that's just flies out the window. No one, it's
It's
we
for
have to
bites, man. All it is for bites. That people want to get out ahead, make it there, so it grabs
crazy.
attention. It's all attention grabbing. It's not because you don't know anything.
Yeah.
But you make a definitive thing. I mean, I'd much rather wait and see than have to retract something that ends up being wrong. I don't know.
The problem is that, like when a newspaper puts on the front page a big sensational story that, that
What's the
the
type we're bringing up newspaper and front page?
but you know what I mean, like a
Yeah,
headline, they shoot from the hip, and then it turns out being wrong, and then they
issue a
post
retraction.
they post a retraction that no one sees. Like that, it's like this big sensational headline
The
that's
retraction's never a front page.
the
It's
retraction is never a front
accuracy
page,
in there.
and that's that's a problem. Like it's this is what happens with the director for that Blake Lively like
Oh
film, that
yeah,
she's trying to steal the director, like, oh, saying, oh, he sexually assaulted me, even if it does come out that he didn't, which he didn't. you know his reputation is tarnished. Like
yeah.
that kind of shit carries along with you. False
Well, right.
accusations are
Oh yeah. Well, I
can
mean, and again, you know what? I think that again, probably a topic for another bit, but the whole Me Too movement, did it have to happen? 1,000%, because there were people that were doing stuff. Now, has the accountability been made forcefully on the other side, where someone is just making something up and now we're not holding them accountable for just, oh, well, it ended up being true, so, go on. Well, no, you're falsely accusing somebody, and now it has huge ramifications for the other
so
person. And like right now, Trevor Bauer is a perfect example, where this guy has had multiple women that have come out, none of which has happened in court. The last time he pitched in the major leagues, he won the Cy Young Award, meaning he was the best pitcher of the year, and has not been able to come back. And no, none of those lawsuits have bared fruit as to those women. The way they said it happened. And this guy still, from 2020, has not been able to play and pitch and do his thing. Now, I still think there's other factors with him in general, how he goes about stuff and whatever else, but the accusation and the fallout that it had, and him not being able to return, is completely ridiculous. Sure, validate the claim, find out what it is, but if you're bringing up stuff that could harm somebody else, and it turns out that it's not true or not to the veracity at which you said it was, you need to be held accountable too. We need to be on an even playing field, where it's not just that, the accusers have enmity, and it's just
I
like not,
to me, it's important that an accuser gets,
whistleblowing is different than accusing. Whistleblowers should be protected, sure, but accusers, you're saying they did
and
something, and
and I
that's
and I think that, for me, yes, we should believe accusers. There should be,
I think we should listen to accusers, which is different.
but there needs to be a process of investigation and not shoot from the hip type of reaction. Like the problem with like Me Too, the problem with like believing all accusers is not not believing the accusers. It's reacting preemptively. And I think that people are too worried about like, oh well, what if this is something that's like, say it would, let's just hedge our bets, safer, like better to be safe than sorry, let's just kick that person out off the team, or let's get them off of TV, or let's exile them from Hollywood, things like that. I really like, there needs to be a process of, okay, you have an accusation, you're saying this happened, we believe you, let's figure this out. It's almost like, you know, the innocent until proven guilty. It's you're telling the truth until we prove that it's a lie. And I think that that it's important for us to hear people out, to understand, and not allow victims to end up feeling like they can't talk to anybody, like that no one's going to believe them. We need to believe victims until we can prove that they're not telling the truth. And
Yeah, and the big thing is then, if it's found out that they are,
then
something needs to be done.
yeah, then the
Because
reactions are
again,
just.
it can't be accusation without accountability either.
Yeah.
Because again, then it just places all the blame on one side and releases the other. Now,
Yeah,
again,
well,
if something's
yeah.
happening, something should be said. But I don't think that, again, having freelance of anything at any time, and then again, depending on the fallout from it, Trevor Bauer was making $35 million a year at that point, and none of these women were pulling in that kind of money. They were the last one that he had was
Well,
specifically about
what does that
free
matter
money.
though?
What's that?
What does that matter though? That they weren't
Well,
making as much money.
think about the prime of his career and just the monetary value that he's lost because of that,
Sure.
that he'll never be able to regain, or just his career in general. He'll never, it'll always be talked about, unfortunately. And it's like, so where do we place this one action that's now been proven to not be what it was meant
But
to
this is
be?
what I'm talking about. The headline, the retraction,
And
or the
it's not like he can sue her for anything. You know what he sued her for? No money, because he didn't need the money. Sued her to release the text messages and the correspondence that proves it wasn't what she said it was.
so
He just wanted to
there
clear his name, but even
needs
clearing
to
that
be,
hasn't got him back in.
but there needs to be an equal and opposite defamation type of reaction. If you accuse me of something and it comes to light that you were lying about that accusation, then you are open to a full, like, being on the hook and responsible for the defamation of that person's character, the loss of income. That there needs that
Yeah,
rubber
but
band has to
that
snap
girl's
in
never
both
going to make
ways.
$35 million in her lifetime, let alone, again, and then how do we get,
But that, okay, but
how
you're
do you get
focusing on
society to, how do you,
that one instance though.
well, how do you get society to then agree
Because
that, okay,
if there
they
is an
did,
equal,
and we need to bring them back in now?
because if there is an equal and opposite reaction, it only takes one or two of these to, like, oh, I accuse someone falsely and now I'm the pariah, I'm the social pariah, I'm the one that is now paying restitution and having to come out and make public statements about, oh, I lied about this, that I was I said the sky's falling and I was lying, I'm the boy who cried wolf. That will deter people from doing that. They People won't have a vested interest in ruining people's lives with false accusations, and that will weed out the false accusations, and it will be a lot easier and more publicly and societally appropriate for us to believe all accusers, because we will have far less false alarms and false claims.
So taking that into the backlash, right? So you have a lot of people that after it happened, a lot of stuff came out, a lot of stuff was said, a lot of stuff was asserted.
Yeah.
Even with Kimmel, right? So he goes and says that MAG is trying so hard to not show that this person was, that and whatever else. Again,
His comment was
it's
about Trump. It wasn't even about
yeah,
Charlie Kirk. That's the problem.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it seemed like it was about the party again, and it's a finger pointing thing is what I heard from him, as far as like everyone's trying to prove that it's either this person on this side or it's not our person, not on our side, and just worried about, again, the wrong thing, you know. And it just, I watched it, you know, and I was like, if that's all it takes, you know, Biden and Obama could have went how hard at Fox News
I
and
mean,
all the stuff that they
this
said,
is
you know. I'm like,
this is what
it really wasn't, you know.
I saw someone that was like, well, you know, Kimmel shouldn't be talking about the president like that, and someone flipped it on its head and said, can you imagine the absolute outlash that would happen if Biden or Obama had coerced the FCC to remove to revoke the license for Fox News or any of those right leaning news
Yeah,
networks that they would never let that slide.
no.
And the fact that we're just like, oh, you know, it's okay, they have the power to do that, they're within their rights to censor it. Like, no, this is a systematic push towards censorship and removal of our of constitutional rights. It's a problem. It's huge, and this is a drop in the bucket. This is how it starts. You look at the what happened in Nazi Germany. Look at what happened in with Al Qaeda and with with it's. I mean, this
I
is
mean, China and North Korea are the big ones for me, where they
yeah.
control all matters of news and
There
everything
is
else.
no dissent.
Yeah.
It's illegal to dissent, and this country is built on the ability and right to have a dissenting opinion.
Or just freedom of any opinion, basically.
Right.
Dissenting, agreeing, or either or. You know, again, where
Yeah.
I am most times, where it's like, I think that both of you are a little nuts and that the majority of people are somewhere in the middle. And, you know, we don't have to, both parties, you know, right now they swing for the fences where it's all or nothing. And it's like, I think if you guys just tried to get a base hit, we'd all be fine.
Yeah.
But you keep trying to do these big things, and it's like, okay, well, you know what? If you're going to take a big swing, sometimes you're going to have a big miss, and it's just,
A lot of people talk about this like massive, just this divide, this polarization of politics and politician in society, just of societal issues. Uh, at this point, it feels like we have to have that because opinions are so differing, and the issues that are coming up and the things that people are taking stands on, there is no middle ground anymore because the problems have gotten so bad that you can't afford to be in the middle. If you're voting down the middle, your vote is wasted at this point. And unless something changes with a third party option or some other, ranked choice voting, that there is no middle, there is no middle of the road.
well, then
It's a throwaway vote at this point.
yeah, well, then I told you, you know, if you look up registered voters and the percentages of them and stuff like that, the Democrats having the major cities just by volume, right? LA, New York, Chicago, they're going to have more per capita as far as like amount of voters, around like 44, 45 million registered, you know, Democrats. And then as far as like registered Republicans, it's somewhere around 36 to 37 million, you know. The very next biggest class of registered voters is independents, and it's at like 33 or 34 million. It's not small. And again, you know, when we talked about it before, I think that even in those registered Democrats and registered Republicans, there's probably a lot of moderate or centrists in that realize they got to pick a lane, or that they, you know,
And
prescribe a little bit more, a little bit right, a little bit left.
and,
But if
and
that,
this is
like
exactly
third largest
on a survey.
group,
On a survey, you have yes, no, unsure, and that is the binary that our political system is built on. It's a blue, a red, or a I don't know.
a
And
gray,
to be an independent in this country is a I don't know. And that means your vote is not is meaningless at this point.
for right now.
I wish
Yeah,
it did mean something, but
I
it is
just
at this point. It means meaningless. Putting it,
and the last election, all the elections for the longest time have been defined by what? Independence in swing states. So even right now, you know, left and right, they're going to win all the states they should win. But in those swing states, it's the independent. Even this last one, even this last election they were talking about, right? It was, how are you going to get the independents to vote for you? You're going to get the reds, you're going to get the blues. It's the people in the middle, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like, how are you gonna get them? So, I mean, even now over here, California based, yeah, it doesn't, there was a big swing. There have been big percentages that have gone a little bit more red than blue in the past. But in those other ones, Michigan, Pennsylvania, places like that, there are. Michigan, the last time I checked, was 49-51. That's about as 50-50 as you get. And it's the independents in those areas that make the difference. And it's just, I it's hard. So again, this backlash, of course, is going to be what was he and why, and again, Kimmel and stuff. I mean, it's I think that shows like his and have gotten more political than they were. Johnny Carson and guys like that, back in the day, I think they were pretty apolitical. They didn't really discuss Conan, never really discussed, politics. And for some reason, he has made it a big thing, Again, he has the right to talk about whatever he talks about. It's fine. Um, but late night shows, I don't understand why that needs to be a, kind of a if I tune into Bill Maher, like that's a political show. I know it's going to be that way and
So,
stuff. Just like Kimmel in general, if you're just doing a show where you're talking to actors or you're talking to writers or
well,
whatever, then
late late
why does
night
it always
late
have to
night
be?
shows are supposed to be variety shows,
Yeah.
you know?
It seemed
And
like you had a very specific topic a lot of the time.
but this
Not that
is
Trump doesn't give you a bunch of talking points, but
but that's because of the landscape that we're in. That's because that is top of mind for so many people, like when the Beatles were the best thing since sliced bread, that's what was on the variety shows, the late night shows. They had the actors, these big Hollywood actors, back when our media was the media that we ingested, whether it was movies or television or radio, when it was chosen for us. We didn't have choice. We didn't have Spotify where we could listen to 10 million different songs, that everybody had a niche and everybody had I mean, I think the algorithm, the dawn of the algorithm has created a focus, a hyper focus, a point where politics and what's going on with the president, what's going on with legislation, have become top of mind for everybody. Everybody's talking about it, and the more side side issues have just get pushed out to the edges, and the only thing that we're talking about is what people are angry about, or what the stupid thing that so and so did. When George W was in office, if we had had this type of streaming and everybody's got a camera and a screen in front of them, we would have had we would have had the exact same type of content where everybody's making fun of George W. Bush. When we had, Clinton's whole sex scandal would have been huge, and there would have been 24-hour coverage of it. Like Obama have being the first black president, all the good things and all the bad things that happened during every presidency would be just as televised then as it is today. We're just in this era where everybody has a camera, everybody has a screen, and everybody has a platform. Everybody can start posting things on Twitter. They can post things on Instagram, on Snapchat, and TikTok. Everybody has a platform, and that causes all of our opinions to be, for some reason, more important than they probably should be. The fact that we're doing this podcast is part of that. That like that. Who cares? Who cares what us two straight white men? Who cares what we think?
exactly.
You know. But it's worth talking about to
Yeah,
us. Maybe no
sure.
one else.
Yeah. And then, again, the big thing is like all the stuff that we have now for some reason has this like deep connection with us in some way. Like if it's our social medias, it's like, okay, well, this is my page or my thing where I
It's an
get to
extension of
express
us. Yeah.
yeah, which I don't think it should be. I think that makes you overly invested in what happens to it. If something is said to you on that, it's a personal attack or whatever else versus like, it's just social media. Who cares? This is some random person that hopefully it's a random person. It's not like someone that you know, but it could just be a random person. And why do again, I see a lot of this stuff when we talk about motivation of why it happened and everything else. And I told you the old phrase that I don't know when the last time I heard it actually, where it's, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words cannot hurt me. We used to say that stuff all the time. And that was back when we actually had bullies, when getting pantsed was a thing, or wedgies were a thing, or swirlies were a thing, or like,
We still have bullies, but
you actually had,
they're
yeah, but
online now.
it's more of emotional stuff now. We've flipped that to where it's words mean everything, and the physical stuff, we shouldn't deal with violence at all. And it's like, we have control over how something we hear really affects us, how much space we really give that in our minds, and everything else. And who knows what this guy went through, or anything else, but we place so much on words now, and what people say. And it used to just be, again, you go back to the 70s of, free love and like everything else. It's just people talk. Well, and then here, especially freedom of speech. There, we have the freedom and the right to say whatever we want, and you have the equal one of not caring, choosing not to care, or being hurt and moving on, and not giving it that space to let it sink in, and have a. And that's a question you need to ask yourself, right? If someone said something, and it's affecting you in this big negative way, why? And having somebody to talk about it with, like, hey, someone said this and it really bothered me, versus letting that stuff sink in and take you to a dark place, because social media for damn sure is not going to make it worse. Again, you talk about algorithms, right? I wish they pushed positive stuff the way that they push negative stuff. Negative stuff, even, I mean, I don't know if you remember in business school and whatever else, but when they talk about just reviews, like Yelp reviews and whatever else, one negative review was equal to like 7 positive ones. So the ratio of the importance of the negative has always been more significant than positive. And I mean, we got to move away from negative things being more important. It's like, you don't push the positive. Even right now, I think what am I trying to say? Respectable presidential run we had, in my opinion, was McCain and Obama, where they were not talking crap about each other.
Mm-mm.
There were
In fact, it was quite the opposite. That my one of my
there was
favorite.
so much respect, man.
Yeah,
And like, even Obama, you see him at a rally, and someone behind him, or down or something's going on, and it's a Republican that's saying all this stuff, and they start grabbing him and taking him out. He goes, fellas, he goes, guys, he goes,
on the
leave
other
him there.
on the other side,
He goes, let me see
McCain
what
was
he's got
doing
to
it.
say. And McCain, yeah,
Yeah,
someone was saying shit about Obama.
yeah.
Oh, he's not born here, whatever. He goes, no, no, no. He goes, don't say that about him. I said, he is the he's a
But
citizen. He's been here.
there was
He
an
goes,
old
but
lady
there was a check.
there was an old lady that was saying like, "I'm so scared. He's an Arab.
Yeah.
He's Muslim." McCain got up close and he goes, "No,
No,
he's
he's
not.
not.
He's not an Arab because he's a
He's not.
respectable Christian
He's a
man."
great guy. Yeah.
Even
But
his
you'll
even his
never hear
concession
that.
speech,
Yeah.
everybody's going boo, and he goes, no, 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 no. Like he stopped. He
That's
didn't
not how we do
want
this.
people to
That's
boo.
not the way that we conduct ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
he was, and you know what? He was my first vote when I was 18. And, and I was just like, and it had nothing to do with against Obama. I really wasn't that informed back then. My family, again, has just leaned a little right of center. And, war hero, the dude had been tortured and came back. And I said, he had my sympathy for the most part. And again, you add in the stuff where he's fighting against his own party, who's accusing Obama of all these things, and him saying, he's a nice guy. We don't need to behave this way. And that aspect has gone away, where you have the leaders of these parties that do not stop those fringe things.
Well, it's. I mean, even look at what Trump said about McCain. He goes, "Oh, I like people who haven't been
Exactly.
captured."
Like, that dude ever did a
You
damn
know,
thing like that in his life. Yeah, that was the most,
he's got
that was,
bone spurs. He's got bone spurs. He couldn't serve.
so yeah. So again, you know what? I wish, um, I think my random thing at the end, I'll save it for later, but, you know, um, if I look over stuff, I mean, every time someone gets shot, and this is a business side of me again, the smart thing to do is invest in ammunition,
Oh,
because
every time there's a
it's
big
one of,
shooting,
it's one,
gun sales
yeah,
go up.
because it's the left is going to try and restrict them and take them away, and then the right is going to buy them like crazy because they think the left's going to take them away. So if you invest in ammunition, like, you're hand over fist, which is such a crude way, but if once you start pulling that thread of like people that make bets in bad situations, it's a whole bunch of things. But like, again, gun laws, you know, he took his supposed grandpa's gun, his family gun, out of the house. I mean, how you stop that? I don't know. Not in Utah, man. I just you
Well,
see
even
where
here, when I was in high school,
I had I, I had
stole a
three guns in
gun.
the house. I had 3 guns in my house, you know, but big thing is my parents had it set up to where you don't go in their room. Like, it was a whole thing where you don't, and but there was a line of, like, "This is mom and dad's space, this is not a child's space," but that line has been blurred for a long time. I don't know how, how you guys work and stuff like that, but parents don't have the privacy they used to have. Kids kinda just come in and invade the space, and it's like, well, if you establish that this door requires permission to enter, you gotta enforce that and deadly enforce that if there's deadly consequences on the other side of it. We had 3 guns in the house. They never got fired other than in an open field somewhere where nobody was around. So it's responsible people that tell you how to do it and how to use it. Um, but yeah, I mean, how you prevent him from going in the house and just taking it and doing it, I I don't know, you know?
They were a gun family. Yeah.
It's Utah. I keep reminding myself that, it's Utah, man, there are parts of the country are like that, and so I mean, I have a bunch of things in my head as far as like I try and relate it to driver's licenses. Depending on the type of vehicle that you want to drive requires a certain amount of education or a certain license, and more times than not, it's based off of ability and liability of if things are to go wrong. Why we can't, well, we're never going to be able to restrict guns completely because it's too ingrained in why we're here and our entire American life, right? But you can say that these guns are home defense, these are hunting, these are a whole nother category that needs more time, a higher license, showing that you're capable doing all those things. Assault rifles and non-hunting rifles and whatever, like in that first category, handguns, shotguns, whatever else, your hunting rifles, which he had a hunting rifle again. There's not much you could have done to stop it. But then you have these bigger ones. Like there was that Pennsylvania one. I don't know if you heard about it, where those 3 cops got shot. Dude had an AR waiting inside. They walked in the front door and he just lit them up. And it's like, but he's got an AR. I don't think a regular person should have an assault rifle. I would put that in a whole nother tiered category. But again, just making it to where it might take a little bit longer to get it. You have to show a little bit more competency to get it. You can't say we're restricting it, right? But you can say the liability and accountability for this kind of weapon is going to take a little bit more time. You're not walking into Walmart and buying it. You're not going the same day. You're not, you have to show again, we get into that one dude that was driving that big rig that flipped to you in the middle of, I'm sorry, but if you're going to drive a vehicle that size that can cause that kind of damage, you need to have the right license to drive that thing. And I feel like because we already do that, because we already have licenses that work, that aviation's the same way. Sure, you can fly a Cessna, but you're not flying a 767. So that kind of method is already it's already in our world where depending on what's happening, we need to have a certain level of license or capability or whatever else. Just
Yeah.
apply
There's
it to
nothing in
that.
the Constitution
Right?
that talks about like a license. Like the second. That's why Second Amendment people like, no, we have a right to bear arms. It's not a right to apply for a license and maybe be denied. Like it's an inalienable right. I
Which they're not wrong, but we
but
can evolve a bit. We can evolve a bit. And
yeah,
and and call a spade, right? A problem's a problem.
but these are the same people. I mean, a lot of these deeply uh passionate about the Second Amendment people are also Christians that don't follow all of the Bible teachings, that pick and choose what they
Yeah.
want to out
Oh,
of
because some
religion.
things aren't applicable from thousands of years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Same with the Constitution, man. If
yeah,
I don't know about you, but before we did this, I actually went back and read the Bill of Rights and read the Constitution and read the Declaration of Independence just to make sure that I knew that I was on the right footing. And I had always thought the Second Amendment said you had the right to raise a militia, and I thought that bear arms was connected to that in some way, meaning that we have the right to bear arms if a militia needs to be formed, but that's not the way it's written. There's a comma that separates the two, meaning you have the right to a militia and you have the right to bear arms. So I'm like, okay, well, it's separate. But you know what? At the time, there's even one about not housing soldiers can't be housed in civilian houses. Want to know why? Because British soldiers were sent over here to have an ear in every
Right.
house because they knew dissent was coming
Yeah,
and
surveillance.
everything. It's like there are so many things that read in that Constitution because the British were here, and it's like they're not here anymore. So it's like again, we're beholden to this thing as if it cannot change. And I'm like, how many amendments do we have? I think that the founding fathers, knew that we were a brand new country and that we were going to have to add stuff and change stuff. So they left it open for change. You don't need to change the original one, but you can say, hey, uh, it's 2025 now. I don't need to worry about a British soldier in my house because it's not a thing, So it's like, how are we able to evolve and not have the fear of we open Pandora's box, we're never going to be able to close it again? It's hard, you know. I even the whole religious thing, whatever else. I'm not in the ground or head in the sand as far as the founding fathers were Christian men. In God we trust and everything. It's ingrained in the society back then, but everybody was back then. So we can't alienate the conservatives that unfortunately a lot of their language still mirrors the start of the country. And so I
Yeah.
mean it's hard it's hard, and again my whole thing is we got to take both. We can't go back 300 years. We have to keep going forward. So I mean it's just finding the middle ground really.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
That's a great segue to the end.
yeah, I mean again I think the only thing to wrap up that whole thing would just be what's still ongoing, right? And my biggest thing is, of course there's a ton of stuff we don't know still. Um and some for good reason. Again, I making the point that just because we don't know it right now doesn't mean that the authorities don't know it. But you can't release everything pre-trial. Because you still have to realize that a jury still needs to be selected. You still need to have impartial people. And what if all of the evidence comes out and it has to be done in Utah? It's got to be done with local people and everything else. And it's like, how do you find 12 people that don't know that this happened, that don't have a political, bias, that don't have, and then if you give them everything that haven't made up their minds yet. And that's a big thing. I've served on a jury and whatever else. And it's like, how do you can't give us everything. You can't, even if you have it, you can't give us everything. So we don't really know how much isn't truly known right now until the trial happens. And then, the greater scheme of it all is, um, what if unbiased juries are an unavoidable thing of our past, of our present and our future? That because of the way social media works and because of the way the news is and because of all the divide, that you can't find an unbiased jury. You know, I mean, it's how do you move forward with the justice system if we don't have unbiased minds
It's true.
passing judgment?
It's true.
So it's
All right.
difficult.
Yeah.
My one random thing would be, I don't know why Cheez-Its makes this. And it's the
Extra toasty.
yeah, you know
It's
what?
great.
It's we don't have a middle ground on this. If you think it's great. Because
What's wrong? Well, you bought a
it
bag
should
of
have
them.
they should have labeled it don't park in front of my house, as far as like the neighbor that doesn't want anybody, just that grumpy neighbor on the block. If you like extra toasty Cheez-Its, burnt cheese and everything else, I don't know how you have a good wake up and have a good day.
What?
Because it's no man, no one likes burnt things. It's just not. I couldn't even eat that without adding like a different one to add some cheese to it that wasn't
That's
burnt.
crazy. That's crazy. Yes. I won't meet you in the middle. No. I don't. I'm not a big fan of Cheez-Its in general, but a
Okay.
nice crispy Cheez-It,
Crispy and burnt are different.
burnt to a crisp.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Again, follow us on social media, and a good Corona to you, sir.
Good Corona, bud.